So today I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these guys. And this is a prototype, so it's going to look a little bit different. But what this is a spring-loaded uh, retainer pamphlet, trifold brochure, rack card, whatever you want to call it, holder. I think these are normally called brochure holders, rack card holders, pamphlet holders. They go by many names, but this is a little invention I worked up a couple years back because I was in need of one at work. And what this does is it has a spring-loaded little lever arm here that puts pressure on whatever you put in here to keep it from blowing away in the wind. And that's its one and only purpose, is to just keep everything straight and vertical so that they don't like sag or bend in humidity, and to prevent them from blowing away. And I've also designed it so that it's, easy to work. If you want to pull something out, you just grab it and rip it out. If you want to put it back in, as long as you've got like a cardstock or a cardstock brochure, and it works a lot better if they're made of like photo paper or glossy cardstock. You can just slide it right back in. But if you want to refill it, you just simply reach over here with one hand, press it down, drop everything in, let it go. Bada bing, bada boom. I've got 3 of these worked up outside of my office. That I got holding. It's not my office, it's where I work. I don't own it, but not trying to put on airs. I've got 3 of these outside of there, and that holds pamphlets, handouts, and stuff that our organization gives out. And they've held up well for 2 years. I think the only damage I had is somebody walked into one and broke one of the arms, and it was just a simple fix. Pop the thing out, stick a new one in, put it back together. And yeah, it takes 3 different kinds of materials. I believe this is a 1/8 thick sheet of acrylic. It needs to be at least 6 inches long. These are 1 foot long, 3/16 inch acrylic rods. You can also use 3/16 stainless steel rods, which is kind of necessary for the 6 inch or the 12 inch rack card holder, handout holders. These smaller little trifold holders that are only 4 inches wide, you can use the acrylic tubing and it looks a lot better. But you can't get away with it on the bigger stuff. There's too much. The spring puts too much torque on the rod, and it does not like it. So you gotta switch to stainless steel. When I made all of mine, I used just regular old zinc plated steel, which was a mistake due to our inescapable Charlestonian humidity. So I would recommend using stainless steel, both wire and rods. And yeah, over here this is just piano wire. Half millimeter, half 50 thou piano wire, which I've just folded into these custom springs. I tried to find pre-made springs to buy somewhere, and I couldn't find anything that met my needs, so I've just had to custom make them. So it's pretty simple to make one of these. It's 4 component parts, 3 parts, 4 actual pieces that get assembled. And it's made out of 3 different materials. You need a 3/16 rod, 1/8 sheet of acrylic, and some kind of wound spring steel. This is 50 thou music wire. If you can find something that's stainless steel that's got roughly the same elasticity, tensile strength, compression, whatever the spring engineering words are, go for that. Yeah, stainless steel works a lot better because if you're putting this someplace where there's wind, you're going to be outside, there's going to be humidity unless you're like in Arizona or something. So you're going to want stainless steel so it doesn't rust. It also just looks nicer. It stays nice and shiny. This is the arm that you're making. That's the profile there. These are the folds that we would do. So this one is upside down. As you can see right there, this one has been properly sloped and beveled here on the ends. And if you can figure out a way how to glue acrylic together, I don't work with acrylic a lot, so I just went with the simple, easy method. But if you're a master at working acrylic, you can sort of cut some little slices in here and maybe heat this up, fold it out, or sort of cut a little piece and bend it at a 40 or a 90-degree angle, and then sort of just glue it in here. But I just went with this. I just took another piece of music wire. Actually, I think this is actually a paper clip on this one. Actually, these are all paper clips. I just took a piece of paper clip, folded it over around the 3/16 rod, cut it off at about 3/4 of an inch, and then just drilled 2 little 1/16 inch holes, put it right on in there, fit it on the rod, and then just bent over either side and clipped it off. and that holds on to the rod. So I think I'm going to go through and make another one of these and show you how that works, and give you some of the dimensions over here on these guys right there. But it's pretty easy. This is the complicated part. Once you have one of these made, all you're really doing to your rack card, and it does require some modification, is you're drilling a 3/16 hole on either side, and then you're just installing it on there with the spring. And bending the spring is also a little bit tricky. You just kind of have to go by feel. You got to make a couple. I mean, music wire is not expensive. I think this was like a $10 or $15 roll, and that'll last me the rest of my life. But you just have to play around with it, get the tensile strength just right. I found with this music wire, it was 2 full wraps is all it needed, and that gives me just enough. Any more, and I feel like something might break if something binds up and you press on it too hard. And yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling real quick, and we're gonna go actually far more in depth into the actual construction and assembly process. I'm not gonna drill another rack card holder just because I don't have another one to drill. But it's really just a matter of making sure that you have your spring legs the right length, and just sort of centering this far enough out that when you press on this, it opens all the way so that you get full vertical clearance. You're parallel with the backer. And that is also a concern. You lose some volume on your rack card when you do this. I think this loses about maybe half, 60% of the volume. But, if you've got wind blowing stuff all over the place, that's kind of more important than, how many you can stuff in there. Just come back and fill it up twice as often. All right, so here are the rack card holders that I've been using at work for the last, coming on 2 years now. As you can see, they are quite rusty, and that's because I didn't use stainless steel hardware, because these were basically prototypes. What usually ends up happening is I make a proof of concept, and then a prototype, and then I say good enough. And then I refine the design and then never build the proper one. But anyway, as you can see, it works for 12 inchers, 4 inchers, and 6 inchers. And it's a pretty simple setup. They've survived out here for the last 2 years with tourists and all that in our inescapable Charlestonian humidity rusting up. And no problem so far. Other than I think somebody walked into one once and snapped one of these off, and I just put a new one on there, and that was the end of it. Alright, so it's been like a month or something, I forgot where the hell I was, but we'll just pick it up from wherever we're picking it up from now. So I've got measurements on this thing. This is in total 6 inches long. It is half, in each one of these hash marks I've got the dimension measured out here, and these are all pretty rough. I've got them all sort of biased, like a 1/16, eighth of an inch in one direction or the other, just because of the way I'm folding, but you're gonna be eyeballing this, so just go with the measurements I have here. I've got it 1/2 inch down, and then 1.5 inch below that, then an inch, then 2, then an inch. And also I cut this out of a I believe it was a 6 inch by 12 inch sheet of acrylic. It might have been a 12 by 12. What I basically did is I hacked it in half, and then I just hacked it into 1 inch strips like this. And then I also went and just beveled the corners, and these aren't precise. You can take this over to, say, a circular sander and do that, but it's going to heat it up. It's going to get real scuzzy. It's going to, the abrasion is an idea. I used a scroll saw for this. It's not perfect, but I also don't really care. If you really want it to get perfect, I can't help you, because nothing I own is perfect. But yeah, those are the dimensions for this. So it's a 1 inch strip, 6 inches long. This is 1/8 inch thick, and you're going to just mark out perpendicular lines at 1/2 inch, 1.5, 1, 2, and 1 inch. And then what you're going to do after that is you're going to fold it. But before we get to that, I'm also going to lay out all the tools you'll need, as well as the other materials. You're going to need a large and fairly thick paper clip, not a plastic coated one, just a raw steel one. This will make your hinge here. You can use the piano wire for that. I wouldn't recommend it. This stuff is incredibly strong, very hard. It's a real pain in the neck to bend. That's why it's relegated to just the spring, and I'm using a paper clip. Plus, the paper clip has a smaller area and, adds a little bit less friction, but it does eat into the acrylic. That is one worry. is that if this gets too many reps on it, it could start to erode a channel into the acrylic, and then all it takes is one good push to just snap that. But I digress. You'll also need an 8-inch piece of the piano wire of whatever gauge it was that I said before. I'll put it right here. And this is what we're going to use to make our spring. This is the most tedious step in the whole process. And I had this whole jig I had designed specifically to help me bend this, and I forgot what it was for, and I threw it out the other day. So we're back to the drawing board. But this is about 2 inches long, and it's an inch wide, and I have 2.5 wraps around the rod. So it's pretty straightforward. You bend it up an inch, wrap it around 2.5 times, put a tiny little like 3/16 bend in it. You bend it up at about a 45-degree angle, then over at a 90, back over, down at a 90, back at a 45. 2.5 more wraps, and then kick it out, and then cut off the excess. And that's the spring. And I'll go through and I'll bend that and show you. But yeah, inch, 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 inch. Well, about, ignoring, any extra. You can leave it as long as you want. It just kind of looks scuzzy otherwise. And yeah, so that's all the materials you need: paperclip, music wire, acrylic. So we're going to get to bending this. And so in order to bend the wire, you're going to need all sorts of pliers and a table vise, and also a 3/16 rod, preferably a steel one. To bend this, you're going to need a heat gun and some kind of flat, straight metal thing. Anything will work. This is just like a drywall concrete scraper. You can just go down and grab a hunk of iron, as long as it's flat and straight. And that's just because you're going to be heating the snot out of this with the heat gun while it's in the vise, and you want something that'll bend it flat and level. And you can't use your hand for that because, one, your hand isn't flat, and two, you'll burn the absolute hell out of your hand. A heat gun is like a hairdryer on steroids. You can melt lead with that. It puts out about 500, 600 degree heat. And so it'll melt acrylic just fine. So I'm going to slap this in the vise, get to bending, and show you all the bends to do. This is actually the top. And what we're going to do to start out is we're going to bend this one right here. Or maybe this one. I don't remember. I'll look into it. I think what we're going to do is this one first. So you just take it, stick it in the vise, line it up ever so slightly above the edge, maybe about a 1/16 of an inch above the top of the vise. Blast it with the heat gun, and then with this we're going to bend it backwards. And then after we get that, then once you've got it hot, you start to bend it over, and then you take your metal edge and you just sort of fold it over and hold it until it sets, until it actually heats up and sets. And if you don't bend it quite correctly, you can always readjust it in the vise, hit it back with the heat, keep doing it. And the way that I know that it's hot enough is that with this, acrylic that I got that's got this plastic coating on it, the coating starts to bubble. It starts to, bubbles start to appear where the adhesive on the back of it starts to vaporize. That's when you know it's right. And interestingly, it doesn't have any negative effects on the appearance. It's just the adhesive, and it just so happens to melt at just the right temperature. So yeah, it's really that simple. You just heat it up, bend it over, and then let it cool down a bit, turn it back over, bend it the other way, let it cool down, stick it, turn it over, pop it in at just a slight angle. You can get it just enough that you can then, when you do these tips, you're not trying to bend them flat, you're trying to roll them so that you have a lip. With this one, you want a lip for people to push down on, so you want it to be, maybe 30 degrees, something like that. For the one at the top up here, you're trying to roll it back like a full, 60 degrees. See, like that. So that, you can slide stuff in like that, and it doesn't catch. So anyway, yeah, I am totally rambling because I am like 3 beers deep, and I'm already all the way through that son of a bitch there. So I'm going to bend this, and then we'll get on to drilling and setting this guy as well. All right, she's nice and warm. I'm going to hit her with some heat, and I can see if I can do this one-handed while mostly inebriated with the wrong hand. You just go on both sides, get it with the heat, the vise is going to suck a lot of heat out, but luckily we're working with plastic and not metal. You see these bubbles that are forming? That's when you know it's just about ready to form. You see they really perked up there. Come back to the other side. You want to get the back hotter than the front when we're folding like this. And I think that's about good. So we'll set this guy down, take our scraper, just fold her on over. You want to go a little bit further because she's got some spring and she'll bounce back up. So just hold her down. Right about there. See, she's bouncing back up. Give her just a little bit of a twerk. There we are. That's a little bit tight. I probably should have gone up higher. I only gave it about a 16th. I probably should have went up a full 1/8, maybe even a 3/16. But once again, this ain't rocket science. So we're gonna pop her out, spin her around. This is where it gets squirrely. Just trying to bend this back over when you don't have any purchase anymore. So I'm going to not one-hand this together, and I'll catch you when I'm working on that. Alright, I found a different piece of metal to use. I'm not going to be able to do this one-handed, so I'm just going to heat this up, and you want to kind of bias it low because the other bend will start to unfurl on you if it's got any tension in there. See, like that? It's curving back up on me. That's fine, you can just heat it back up. So yeah, I'm going to set this phone down and bend that. Alright, that's done. Come on now, there we go. Okay, see it's shaping up? I need to go back and true that up a bit. But once again, it doesn't really matter. That's actually probably a little bit better. So we're just going to stick it in upside down now, and we're just going to roll this over. Ow, that is warm. Alright, this one we can go, these two we can go back to the concrete knife thingy, whatever it's called. I'm not a mason. Give her a pile of heat. We should just be able to fold it on over like so. That should be pretty good. Nothing crazy. Like I said, this ain't rocket surgery. You're just bending plastic. And all this plastic's got to do is hold paper. This one you need to be a little bit more precise on. You don't want to bend it all the way down to the vise. That's why I'm getting it good and hot. Because this is where the paper meets the thing. Ooh, yeah, I got her nice and toasty. So I'm just kind of bending her. Not really pressing. Yeah, I did it anyway. There we go. Should be good. Bam! There we are. Now, shut this off. So don't set the garage on fire. What we're going to do next is at a 45-degree angle, just like that, we're going to drill two 16th-inch holes about 1/4 inch apart, split evenly across that seam, and then we'll be able to push our paper clip in. And so if you're big money, you can just cut this paper clip in half like that, and you can make 2. But if you're really cheap, you can stretch this and make 4. I am not big money, but I am lazy, so I'm going to just trim this paper clip so that I can do 2. And you just cut right here and right here, or you just cut straight across on these points right there, and then you can just take both sides, and there you go. I think this small one in here is actually the perfect diameter, and that's why I used a paper clip originally. So we're gonna do that real quick. Okay, so I marked that out. I just took the small side of the paper clip, which is in fact exactly the perfect size. You just line it up like that, mark it. Once again, not rocket surgery. and you just take a drill with a 16-inch bit and just drill it at a 45-degree angle to the acrylic itself. I cannot do that one-handed, so I'm going to back away and do that. Alright, now that that's drilled through, you just take your paper clip, just push it right on through like that, cedar home, then get 3/16 rod. You can use the acrylic if you want. Push it all the way down in there. Make sure your vise is actually set. Push it in. Push it as far in as you can get it, and then bend up on the back of the paper clip to lock it in place. And then do that for the other side. Once you get that all the way in there, and I mean really get it in there seated, you don't want a whole hell of a lot of slop. A little bit of slop is good, but not a whole heck of a lot, maybe only 1/16 of an inch. Get it in there, bend it all flat, and then you're going to take your diagonal cutters and just trim this back, only leave about a 3/16 of an inch on there. So I'll bend that and then I'll show you what it looks like. Well, actually, I don't have to do that. I can just show you it on this. This is what it looks like on the final one. See? Just enough. All right, and there, bam. Like I told you, it looks like it was going to be totally burnt and scratched and gouged and everything, but the heat gun has absolutely no impact on the clarity or cleanness of this acrylic when you leave that protective coating on there. So you just peel that off and it looks absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to stick this in here as a backup replacement because my backup replacement is broken. And now we're going to work on the spring, which is the fun part. This is how you lose your eye. So to start off with, it's about a 1-inch section down there, and you're going to want to put a slight, like 15-degree bend in it. And you're going to want to wrap this approximately 2.5 times around, is that right? Yeah. 1.5 times, sorry, around there. Maybe just a little bit more, 1 3/4 turns. Then you're going to jut that out about an inch, doesn't need to be hella precise, and then bend it back up at a 90-degree angle for just about 1/8 of an inch, just, you know, slightly more than the width of your plastic, and then bend it back over at a 90-degree angle, shoot back across just a hair over an inch, bend it back down at a 90, again at a 90, about 1/8 past that, and then another 1 3/4 turns, and then another little 15-degree tick at the end of it. So I'm going to bend that, and I'll try and show the final product to you if I survive. Okay, so we're halfway done. It's not as bad as I remember. The hardest part is getting this initial section, because I kind of cut this a little tight. You may want to go with like 9 or 10 inches just so that you have slack. I mean, I bought that like a 25-foot roll of the stuff, so not like I'm hurting on it, but yeah, just give yourself a little bit of slack. Leave like a full 2 inches and do this bend later. I made a slight change to my design. I added a very small bend at the very tip, and I'm just doing all of this with needle nose pliers, by the way. So you just grab about 2 inches, put her on the 3/16 rod, or just sort of bend it on over, and once you get it started, press your thumb on there. Give her a couple of wraps until she's about like that. It's probably 1 5/8 of a turn. Then go about an inch up, bend it over to 90, the width of the front of the needle nose, then back over 90. And yeah, now comes, just making sure you get it. It's important that you get it wide enough, not so much that you get it super close. The closer you get it, the better, because the less wiggle you're going to have, but it doesn't need to be crazy precise. So I'm just going to free ball it like that, and I'll get back to you when I got this all bent up. Okay, yeah, definitely 10 inches, maybe even 12. I ran out. Only did not even a full turn and ran out. So, yeah, definitely misjudged that. I haven't had to make one of these springs since I made these like a year ago. So, yeah, I've only had to make, I think, like one of these since then. I haven't had to make a spring. So, anyway, yeah, 12 inches. I'm going to retroactively fix that in all the videos, but that's how you build the spring. It's pretty straightforward. You just need needle nose pliers, and preferably a vise and a 3/16 steel rod, and you should be able to get the rest of that just eyeballing it. And then you come over here, and this is going to be different for every single pamphlet holder, but on mine it's 3/8 of an inch in and 1 1/4 inch down, and it's just a 3/16 inch hole, and you want to go real slow. Don't put a lot of pressure. You want to essentially grind your way through here, not press your way through, because if you press too hard, you do that and you might shatter the whole dang thing. So don't do that. So just slowly drill through both sides, and then what you do is you take your 1/2 inch acrylic rod, measure it exactly in half, just take a pair of dikes and just very gently just sort of massage it the whole way around like that, and then get a little bit harder until you're about halfway through, and then you can just snap it and then put it on the belt sander real quick just to sand the edge. And then I would recommend putting a very slight bevel on it. Then what you do is you chuck that rod into your drill, turn your drill on, and just spin the drill and push it right through there. It makes it so much easier. If you've got a piece of the 3/16 steel, I recommend just go running that through there to polish it up a little bit. But yeah, you can even grease it if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it because then you'll get grease everywhere, but I digress. So this guy fits nice and snug, just like so, over our little acrylic arm we made, like that. And the rod goes straight through all 3 of these. Cannot hold these with one hand straight. Oh, why don't I just put it on this thing? Goes like that, and then the rod goes on, and the rest of the spring, see, like that, just pops right on over, nice and snug like, holds it all in place. And the real tricky thing is getting that spring on there, because you've got to run that rod through there, then hold the spring, get the spring outside of here, and then you've basically got to do this while also simultaneously threading the rod through there, while not putting too much torque on this, because you will pop the acrylic and break it. And yeah, that's all it is. Assembly is just as annoying and complicated as I made it sound. And there you go. Now you too can hold rack cards out in the breeze and not have to worry about them blowing around everywhere. And when someone walks up and takes one and goes, "Oh, I don't like this stupid thing," and goes to put it back in, they don't, they'll figure it out. I mean, it's harder now because you've put all this contraption on there, but it's easy to figure out, although people at work still seem to not be able to figure it out. But I digress. So that's it for the video. I'm not going to go into any more of this because that's as far as you'll figure it out. If you like this video, I don't know why you would, go down there, give it a like, comment, tell me how much of an idiot I am, tell me how much of a smooth brain inbred hick that I am who cannot speak, and that I'm also an alcoholic. And if you want to see more of this garbage, you gotta subscribe, so smash the subscribe button, and until next time, I'm out.